Without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Tim Carstens, who's the Managing Director of Base Resources. Mr. Carstens is an experienced mining executive with a career spanning more than 25 years in senior resources sector roles, both in Australia and overseas, with Perilia Limited, North Limited, Robe River Iron Associates, Iron Ore Company of Canada, and St Barbara Mines Limited. A chartered accountant by profession, he has strong experience in all aspects of business strategy development and implementation, acquisitions and divestments, debt and equity financing, organisational development and operational performance. He has been Managing Director of Base Resources since the company's inception in May 2008. Please welcome Tim.
Thanks, Guy. I think we might need to skinny that bio down a little bit. It's longer than the presentation. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Base, we're obviously a Perth-based, Australian-listed, London-listed company. We started our business, if you like, in Kenya in 2010 with the acquisition of the Kwale project. Operationalised that in late 2013, and it's been running, extremely well ever since. It's the engine of our business. We have stretched out into Tanzania with some exploration activity, but I won't be talking about that too much today. The other thing I'll be talking about is the move we made into Madagascar with an acquisition in 2018 of the Toliara project, which really is the future, or the next stage of the future of Base. So as I said, Kwale was the absolute foundation in many respects for our business. It's what we've built our reputation around. We've built our capital base, we've built our team, our business model. It really has been the foundation stone of our business. And for those who have been following us for a long time, you would know that sort of ESG matters have been at the absolute centre of everything we've done with the Kwale development since the very beginning. We don't talk about it a lot, and we actually only got our first sustainability report out in October last year, and we kind of preferred to do the do rather than talk about it, and we'll just let people see it. With the debate having moved on, we've decided the time's right for us to sort of step forward with all of our data and our aspirations and what we're doing and what we're learning and where we're going wrong. But the sort of performance we've always been able to achieve has been, I guess, unified by a pretty simple philosophy or purpose, and that is that we see ourselves as having a central role in solving or contributing to the solving of the problems of people and planet. We do so profitably, but without causing problems. Very simple philosophy, touches everything we do. Everything is a trade-off, obviously, but we're constantly looking for how our actions fit with that fundamental purpose. So if you look at the expression of that over the course of the last 12 months, just some examples. We've now sourced 80% of our inputs at Kwale from Kenya. So we've done a lot of work to develop supply chains in Kenya and develop the ability of Kenyan businesses to feed into what was a pretty unique mining operation in Kenya when we started. We were the first really large-scale mining operation, and we still represent about 70% of the industry. We're 99% Kenyan workforce. So we've got 1,000 people on site, and 99% of them are Kenyan. We invest very heavily in our community programs. It was almost $6 million in the various community programs we've developed over time in FY23. And we're a pretty significant contributor to government revenues. In FY23, it was a little over $50 million. Year before, for a whole range of reasons, it was up over $80 million US. So we're a significant contributor. And I'll talk more about the environmental aspect in a minute. Another area where we set ourselves very high standards and been able to deliver on them is in the area of safety. As I said, we were the first large-scale mining project in Kenya. We were really training people in how people needed to operate in mining safely. that's a challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity because you're not picking up a workforce with a whole lot of particularly bad habits. You're able to develop them. As we speak, we've got a zero frequency rate for both lost time injuries and for total recordable injuries, which is pretty remarkable. Over the life of the project, more than 35 million man hours, we've had 2 lost time injuries. It's something we're extremely proud of and pretty indicative of our performance culture. So from a rehabilitation point of view, we've been mining busily now for 10 years. The rehab has pretty much caught up to mining. The area you can see there is our South Dune. You can see where we're mining at the top there, and we're progressively rehabilitating as we go. A lot of these areas we're rehabilitating with grasslands, but as you would have seen on the earlier slide, we've propagated some 300,000 indigenous trees across 300 different species to enable us to sort of enrich the whole environment in which we operate. And that's our objective, is to leave the Kwale area where we're mining in better condition than when we arrived, and we're certainly having a red hot crack at that. Turning more to the sort of mechanics of the mine and where we're at, we're coming to the end of Kwale. It was always a short mine life. We have managed to extend it with some additional discovery, but fundamentally we're coming to the end of the ore body. We made a transition over the last financial year to the areas you can see to the sort of north there, Pit 199. It's kind of our new low-grade world. So you can see our grades have been pretty consistent over a number of years, but if you look at FY24 there on the right, that's our new world. We drop down to a much lower level. Over the course of the next year, we'll be moving the rest of the mining activity away from our South Dune, and everything will be centralised up in the north, and we'll continue mining there. That gives us ore through to the end of 2024. Then we've got to work out what exists beyond that. You can see those pits, Pit 199 and Pit 199 and Pit 200. They're part of a much larger dune called the North Dune. It's got some 170 million tonnes in it, but it's very low grade, and based on tailings capacity, based on price environment and any sort of conceivable price environment, no more of that is going to be viable. So the focus for us is to very quickly understand what the economic potential of 3 target areas we've identified in Kwale East is. So we're busily drilling there at the moment and trying to come to an understanding as to whether there's going to be sufficient grade and volume to make sense of an extension beyond the end of 2024. With that 2024 date obviously rapidly approaching, we are very much in the planning phase for a shut of Kwale, whether it's at the end of next year or it's a year or whatever beyond that. The focus for us is on closing Kwale out in the same style in which we started it. So we're looking to do a close that cements our reputation for excellence in the full life cycle of mining. So with the cash engine or the earnings engine that Kwale's been, we've been able to deliver some really strong cash returns to our shareholders. Our focus is on delivering both cash returns and capital growth. Over the last several years, while we've kind of been in a bit of a stalled pattern around Toliara, it's been very much cash returns. Over the course of the period from September or October 2020, we've determined dividends that total 22.5 cents, so nearly over $265 million that we've returned to shareholders. So pretty healthy earnings stream, particularly in the context of a share price at the moment of 20 cents. The final dividend we just determined was 4 cents, so pretty healthy yield. Which brings us to, I guess, the path we have our foot on for the future of base. The Toliara project is an absolutely outstanding opportunity. We spent a lot of time looking at mineral sands projects around the world before we decided on Toliara. We acquired it in January 2018. We then went through a study phase, or initial study phase, to produce our first DFS. We then updated that with a second one, which baked in an expansion in operating year 4, which we released a year or two ago. That second DFS shows a project with an NPV 10 post-tax real of over $1 billion US. It's an extremely healthy project. Those of you who know Kwale's history, where we've sort of achieved revenue to cash cost ratios at the top of the pile in our sector of 3, Toliara is sitting at 3.5, and it's up over 4 for the first 10 years or so. So outstanding economics. It's got a lot of growth to come. We've got a resource now of 2.6 billion tonnes. We've incorporated a bit of the drilling that we'd done previously, but not all of it. And of that 2.6 billion, we've got a current ore reserve of just over 900 that forms the basis of that project I just showed you. That's enough for 38 years of mining, so it's a bit academic, but that entire lower sandy unit you can see there is yet to be incorporated in the resource. But possibly what's more interesting are some of the areas with considerably higher grade that we've identified through drilling that we haven't yet incorporated. But possibly the biggest opportunity in front of us is the monazite content of that ore body. It's about 2% of the HM. We're busily working our way through the study phase on that. We completed a scoping study earlier this year. The results of that were enough for us to move on to doing a pre-feasibility study that we're looking to get out in Q1 next calendar year. And then we'll be talking a whole lot more about that. The lower sandy unit also has quite a bit of garnet in it, which we haven't factored in at all, either of those, into the economics of the project I just showed you. From a timeline point of view, the challenge for us is we've been pretty bogged down in getting through fiscal terms negotiations in Madagascar. When we acquired the project, obviously it's got the licences in place. We are moving forward with it. The government decided to impose a suspension while we discussed fiscal terms applying to the project. One of the challenges we had was at the time we hadn't completed our first definitive study, so the economics of the project were not understood by government. There was a need for some advice for government from people like the World Bank and the IMF on what sensible fiscal terms might look like. We obviously had COVID in the middle, which didn't really help things too much. But we'd made some really good progress on reaching an agreement on fiscal terms over the course of this calendar year. We felt we were pretty close to being able to land an agreement. And then things got a bit complicated with the government focusing on a broader revision to the mining code, as well as the elections that we've now got coming up in November. So we don't think we're going to see any movement on this until we get the new government in place in January. But the fiscal terms that we'd sort of landed on were not out of step with what's now coming through in the new mining code. So, we've got reason for optimism that we're close. On an assumption or indicative timeline, you can see there that we can secure fiscal terms early in the new year. We've got about 11 months of work we need to do to get to an FID, and then there's about 27 months to get to our first shipment being waved off. So we'd be looking at that around February 2027. Now, obviously, that creates a hiatus for us. That's not the plan we had, a production hiatus with Kwale closing. But it's a reality of where we find ourselves. But this project is just an outstanding opportunity, not just for us, but as a next major mineral development for Madagascar. So, in terms of base, what we're trying to build here, and I've intentionally put it in inverted commas here, a mineral sands company. That's certainly what we started as. That's what we bought Toliara as. But we're certainly looking beyond that now. We've got that profitable operation in Kenya, even though it's sort of coming towards the end. It really has provided a great launch pad for us. The Toliara project is a world-class project that really does present that opportunity for a diversification into rare earths. It has the potential to be a very significant producer. We've got that strong track record in all aspects of sustainability. We've got a very experienced team that's done this before. We've got the capacity to execute a project well, sound financial position to grow the business. And when you bring all of that together, we do have strategic relevance because of the scale of Toliara in a broader range of critical minerals. You know, we've always had the relevance as probably the biggest undeveloped mineral sand project out there, but now there's a broader interest, and we're certainly eliciting some interest from players in all sorts of different sectors. So it's going to be an interesting next sort of 12 months, I think, for Base. And that's still the hardest thing we've ever done, was get a whole lot of project people to stand together like that. They stood in that formation for about 30 seconds. Thanks, everyone.